Hi guys, now that it is September, it is time to look forward to the autumn, and the autumn means the return of Victober. And today I have my Victober announcement video. I'm going to be talking you through all the Victober challenges this year and giving you some Victorian fiction recommendations based on my challenge and this year's general challenge. I am so excited to be a host again of Victober this year. I've participated for the last 2 years, and last year I was one of the hosts, and I'm really super pleased to be a host again this year and to be a part of it. It's genuinely one of my favourite things that I do every year, and it's such a pleasure to work on. So it's so great to be back doing it, and I've got so many exciting plans for Victober, so many exciting books that I want to read. I've already sorted out my TBR, that's how far ahead I am. But today I'm going to be talking you through all the challenges and talking you through how Victober will run so that you can join in too. So as with last year, Victober will be running for the entire month of October from the 1st to the 31st, and the challenge is to read books by Victorian authors and written during the Victorian period, which ran from 1837 all the way to 1901. The hosts this year are me, Katie from Books and Things, Ange from Beyond the Pages, and Kate Howe, and I feel like we're a really good team and we get on really well when we are planning all the challenges and have lots of fun with it, so it's really good to be back hosting with them again this year. We've each chosen a challenge each, and we've also got a general challenge, and we are going to be doing an overall read along, but you don't need to join in with any of the challenges, or you can join in with all of them. It is completely up to you, and I think that you've just got to have as much fun as possible with it. And I know there are lots of you who love reading Victorian fiction just as much as I do, so for me the month is all about reading books that I know I'm going to love, and I really do try to have as much fun with it as possible. So on to the challenges, and I'll be giving recommendations for my challenge and the general challenge, and then I'll leave a link in the description to everybody else's videos where they'll be recommending books for their challenges. And the first challenge this year is Ange's challenge, which is to read a book written by one of the host's favourite Victorian authors. So either Charlotte Brontë, which is mine, obviously, Thomas Hardy, Charles Dickens, or Elizabeth Gaskell, who are all my favourite authors, so it's a really great challenge to read lots of very popular Victorian authors. I feel like we've all got quite similar tastes in authors, so it was really hard to choose between us who was going to get which author, but I decided to go for Charlotte Brontë because I love Shirley so much, and that is my favourite novel of all time and my favourite Victorian novel because it's my favourite novel, so I thought that would be a really good place to start. And also Charlotte's got the most books out of all of the Brontë sisters, so it's easier to find something to read. Kate's challenge this year is to read a Victorian novel with a proper noun in the title, so either a place name or a person's name, and I'm already really excited about this one, and I've got a few on my TBR which you'll be seeing at the start of October. And I think this is a really great challenge this year because it gives you lots of scope, so you can choose something that you know that you're going to really enjoy and suit it to your tastes. And then Katie's challenge this year is, I think, one of my favourite challenges that we've ever done for Victober, because I think it's just a really exciting one and a really interesting one, and it is to read a book published in either the first 10 years of the Victorian period, so between 1837 and 1847, or the last 10 years between 1891 and 1901. And I think I'm going to go all out and read 2 books for this challenge, but you can choose whichever one you want. And actually, when I was looking into what I was going to choose for my TBR, I found a lot of books concentrated between those 2 periods of time, so it may seem tricky at first, but once you look into it, then it is a really exciting challenge, and I think there is so much room to get some really good reading done. And then my challenge this year is to read a Victorian novel written by a female author under a male pseudonym or anonymously, and I think there are 2 ways to go with this challenge, and that's kind of what I had in mind when I created it, because I love the Brontë sisters, as you know, and they wrote under male pseudonyms. They were called Currer Bell, Ellis Bell and Acton Bell, and I think they are possibly some of the most famous authors ever known to have written under male pseudonyms, and I really wanted to include them in my challenge because I love them so much. And I think that is pretty obvious, and I've been running the Brontë book club this year, so I kind of wanted to tie it into that. But the other reason I wanted to choose this is because I've I've never read any George Eliot before, and I think she is a really great author to read for this challenge. And she wrote so many amazing books such as Middlemarch, which I'm not really sure if I'm going to tackle because it is very big, but it would be quite a nice challenge to do. She also wrote Silas Marner, Adam Bede, Daniel Deronda, The Mill on the Floss, so loads of books to choose from. And I deliberately wanted to choose this challenge because I knew that I wanted to read something by her. I've never read any of her books before, but she's one of the authors that I've been trying to read for ages and then have just never got the chance, or have kind of been putting it off, and I didn't want to put it off anymore. So I'm going to be reading George Eliot for this challenge, and I'm really excited about it. And I feel like those two groups, I was going to say two authors, but the Brontes are numerous authors, so those four authors I think are the way to go with this challenge, and that's the route I'm going to be going down. But if you can think of any other authors that wrote under male pseudonyms or anonymously that were women in the Victorian period, then I'd love to know your recommendations in the comments. And then this year's general challenge is to read a book that has been adapted into either a film or a TV adaptation, and I'm really excited about this, to combine two forms of media, to read a book and then to watch an adaptation. And I'm excited to watch more book adaptations because I feel like there are still some that I haven't watched yet. So I've chosen 4 adaptations to talk to you about. One of these I haven't actually watched, but is one that I'm going to watch even though I read the book last October, and it is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. I've never watched this adaptation, but I did read it for Victober last year and really loved the book, so I'd quite like to set myself an extra challenge to watch this Victober. I loved the book so much. It was so brilliant, and I think that North and South is on Netflix too, so if you don't have the DVD, then I think it is on there at the moment. So I'm probably going to be watching it on there, and I'm really excited about it because I just loved the book. I thought it was so romantic but also very topical at the same time, and I loved the combination of the two. Another adaptation I watched years and years and years ago and bought recently because I do want to rewatch it because I also read the book at the start of this year is Great Expectations, and this is the BBC miniseries starring Douglas Booth, and this adaptation was my introduction to Charles Dickens and I loved it. I must have been about 10, 11, maybe even 12 when I watched it. I wasn't too old, and it wasn't really when I was reading classics at all, but it has really stuck in my mind, and the way that Miss Havisham is portrayed is so good, and there's so much about this adaptation I remember. And when I read the book, I thought it was really faithful, and when I did read the book, it really refreshed my mind of the adaptation. So I kind of did it the wrong way round, but I really recommend this, and Great Expectations is such a good book and fits in with quite a lot of the challenges too. My favourite adaptation of all time, and one of my favourite books of all time, is Far from the Madding Crowd, and this is the most recent film adaptation starring Carey Mulligan. I talk about it a lot, and I was reluctant to include it because I do talk about it a lot, but I have to recommend it to you because it is so amazing and I love it with all my heart. It's so cinematic and adapts the book really well. It's a very faithful adaptation, and the screenplay is written by author David Nicholls, and he just gets Thomas Hardy so much. And that brings me on to my other recommendation, which is for Tess of the D'Urbervilles, and this is the 2008 BBC miniseries, and this was my introduction to Thomas Hardy, and both of these were adapted by David Nicholls, and he is just so spot on. I feel like when you watch the adaptation and kind of hear the characters speaking, you know that he loves Thomas Hardy, and I think that's so important in an adaptation, to translate the heart of the book onto the screen, and he does it just perfectly, and I love it. And this is such a great adaptation too, another one I'd really like to rewatch because I haven't watched it since 2008, and I was 8 years old and I loved it. And this is definitely what made me love Thomas Hardy, because I'd watched this and I'd got used to the story, and so when I read the book, it made me fall head over heels in love with it. So it's really interesting actually that I'd watched this and Great Expectations before I read the books, and I didn't really have any interest in reading classics then, or didn't really know a lot about them, but I do credit them with helping my love of classics because they really did stay in my mind and taught me all about the language and the style and the type of stories that were being told at the time. And so these are kind of the cream of the crop of book adaptations, and I love them. And then the final book to tell you about is the read along that we are going to be doing as a group. You don't have to join in with it, but it is there if you would like to. And we are going to be reading Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. I've only read Cranford and North and South by her. I read North and South last year, and this was one of the books I wanted to read way back at the start of the year that I included on my 2018 classics to read list video, and so I really do want to read it before the end of this year. It was Elizabeth Gaskell's last published novel. It is incomplete, but she got very, very far to the end and you can see what direction it's going to go in. And it is about a girl called Molly whose father marries again and she gets a stepsister, and it's about them. And I think it sounds brilliant, and I don't know a lot about it. Those are kind of the only things that I know about it, but I'm really looking forward to starting it and getting into it, and hopefully I will enjoy this as much as I enjoyed North and South. I loved North and South more than I did Cranford. I didn't think Cranford was super amazing. It didn't blow me away, so I'm hoping that this one will. So Victober will be starting at the beginning of October and running for the entire month. In the description I'll leave all the challenge details and where you can join in, and a link to everybody else's videos where you can find more recommendations too. I really hope that you'll join in with us and enjoy reading some Victorian fiction novels. It's a really exciting challenge. Like I said at the start of the video, one of my favourite things that I do every year, and getting to talk about Victorian novels is my favourite thing, so I really hope that you will enjoy that. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys soon. Happy reading!